Hi, we're back with another episode of The Third Option, and this is our fourth installment of talking about being astonished at the reality and the goodness of God.
It's a five-part series because
There are 5 weeks in this month,
5 Tuesdays in this month.
and we like to,
Drop it on Tuesday. So, this topic of astonishment, we've been talking about a lot of different elements to it, being astonished by the goodness of God, not just the things he does,
Mhm.
but who he is. And today, I think we wanted to devote an episode to why we resist
Yeah,
being astonished.
yeah. What are the barriers? Why is it that it's possible that some believers in Christ can go years and years and years without being astonished? And I think, we need to remind people what we're talking about when we talk about astonishment. We define it as being greatly surprised or greatly impressed, being surprised with something that was unexpected, being surprised in a way that it seems not credible,
Yeah.
just too good to be true.
It's so good that it doesn't seem
and
like it could be
and
possible.
that happens if you're growing in revelation in God, and if you're coming to know him more. What we find is that we keep getting surprised at how good he is. And
Mhm.
even as we're talking about this, I'm speaking from a point of having been astonished by that goodness over and over again, but it keeps happening. And that's astonishing
Mhm.
in itself, is that it keeps happening. And it's like, how good is God? And
Yeah.
it's like we can't see the bottom of this thing yet,
Mm.
and that's astonishing too. So we're talking about that. So an exciting Christian life, or a really vibrant walk with God, is where we keep getting astonished by how good he is. We keep being surprised that he's better than we thought he was. And there are things that will resist us being astonished at God. The astonishment comes because we see something about God that seems to be too good to be true, and we believe it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this, like, didn't Paul say, if you don't have I forget how he said it, but don't have some pushback against the grace of God, you're probably not preaching the full gospel? And there's pushback because it doesn't seem credible. It doesn't seem like it's fair, or it doesn't
Yeah.
seem like, or it seems like God is would let us get away with things that
Yeah.
we shouldn't get away with.
Well, we use the examples of Paul and Jesus preaching a doctrine about God that got them in trouble because it seemed too good.
Got him killed.
Yeah, and Paul was they tried to stone him to death, thought they actually had, just because of what he was preaching. And he was just preaching things that were better, that were saying things better about God than what they were saying, and they just didn't believe it was true.
It's so interesting that that is the case, that it's never that you're saying bad things about God, so we're gonna kill you. It's
Yeah.
that you're saying too
You're
many good
you're
things
saying
about
too
God.
many. And
We're
so
gonna have to just get rid of you because you might, harm people by thinking God is so
but
great.
that's the good news. And what you're referring to is we use Paul's example of, he said people accuse him of preaching a grace that says, well, then let's just sin since grace abounds. And so what we often say now, and using Paul's example, is that if we're not also once in a while misunderstood, if we're not also once in a while thought that we're going too far with grace, we're probably not going far enough. We're probably not preaching the gospel as well as we could be.
Mm.
And because there again, see, God is better than we thought he was. I heard someone say one time that we're all going to be absolutely amazed at how good God really is. And when I heard that statement, it just exploded within me, and I thought, so real and so true. I have already been astonished many times at how good God is, and it changes your heart, it
Mhm.
changes your life, and it has to change some of your doctrine, some of your belief system. And if we resist that astonishment, if we're not being astonished by God's goodness, if we've sort of just had God at a certain level for a long time, we want to talk about some of those reasons in this
Mhm.
episode.
Yeah, because I think when you have a dogma of something, it can get old after time. Even the grace message, right? You start hearing the same terminology and you hear the same thing over and over, and it can just get kind of old. And that's not the same as a vibrant, living relationship that you're having with someone who is so mind-blowing. You're only grasping these tiny outer edges. So in the relationship, there's only more good to
You're
see.
getting to know him more.
Yeah.
And
Whereas
if he's good,
Mhm.
then the more that you get to know him, the more you will be surprised.
Yeah,
Yes.
because in a normal human relationship, you might say, well, the more I get to know you, the more I see your weaknesses or your flaws. And like I get to see more of what you've been like kind of hiding from me. But in relationship with God, he's even better than we're actually giving him credit for at this point. You know, what we can see right now, he's so much bigger
I
and
can
better than
honestly
that.
say that after knowing you for all these years, the more I know you, the more I actually like you because I see more beauty than I even saw at the beginning because it's real. So at the beginning, you fall in love because you see good things, and so
Mhm.
you fall in love. But as I've gotten to know you more, I've seen even more beauty and have
True.
more reasons for loving
I
you.
was thinking from me to you, like I have seen weaknesses, but I've actually seen more consistent, more grace, more kindness than I saw when I first married you. And I saw a lot when I
Did any
first
of it
married you.
surprise you?
I think it surprised me that it kept going.
Mm.
You know,
That's what we're
you know
talking
what I mean?
about, that surprise.
Yeah.
We're talking about God being better than we thought he was, and when you talk about it being getting stagnant, it's because we can create a dogma that puts God in a box where we think we understand him. And this is where a lot of religious strife and religious debate is because I've got a box and like, no, this is God. And you've got a box. No, this is God. And if they don't mesh at times, then
Yeah.
I'm going to say that you're wrong or you're a heretic or you're whatever. But that dogma, it creates a box and you quit being astonished because you think you know.
Yeah. That's a good
This is
point.
what I love about the astonishment is that one of the definitions, if you Google the definition of astonishment is really mind blowing and that terminology fits my thinking all the time because it's mind blowing sometimes. It just seems too good, and that's why a lot of times people are resistant to being astonished by the goodness of God is because they have tradition. Jesus even said that, didn't he? He said, it's
Yeah.
your traditions that make the expression of God
Yeah.
ineffective.
Mhm.
And so here he was expressing a God that was better than they thought he was, but they wouldn't have it because they
Mhm.
said, no, God is this way. Had their traditional
You
dogma.
They were trading out safety for the illusion of being safe or the illusion of being in control. They were trading that for
Yeah.
the astonishment.
And
Like,
it is an illusion of
mhm,
being in control, and it's an illusion of God, and it's an illusion of reality. So another resistance is that we misunderstand the Bible. We don't really understand the Bible like we think we do. In fact, the Bible says, if any man thinks he knows something, he knows nothing as he ought, or as he should, or as he could. So if I think I know God, I know nothing compared to what I could know. And
mhm,
if I think I know the Bible, and I've been in it for many, many decades, so I know a
mhm.
lot about it, but I know nothing compared to what I could know. In fact, I'm continually coming to greater understanding of the written scriptures, and they're making more sense to me. But you know, 10 years ago, I would have
Yeah.
said, "No, I understand these
Yeah,
things."
it's not the knowledge that leads. You have the knowledge, but this alive relationship is bringing to light
Mhm.
things in the Bible that all your knowledge and study didn't quite
And you can
get.
see the glory of Christ in the scriptures more, the beauty of God in it. Now, if it without that personal communication between you and the Father going on, which should and could be happening to everybody. Without that going on, you're just left to your own brain trying to piece together verses of scripture and trying to create an image of God.
I
And
remember we did a teaching about the
Lego and
And
logos,
Logos,
Legos and
and
logos.
you had me on the stage kind of putting together this Lego system where I was just trying to fit together, how does this work? What is God like? How do I figure him out?
And you had stacked together this grotesque looking thing.
Ye But you're so focused on, "Well, how does this connect with this? And how does this"
Mhm.
I think this makes sense, and then somebody comes along and preaches something and you're like, "There
Right.
goes my
No, yeah.
little
Yeah,
structure."
if yeah, if you let it. I mean, some people won't let it. They'll fight for that.
Oh,
They'll
yeah,
fight for that structure.
they'll kill you or
But
kill them.
doing that, it misses the heartbeat, and
Yeah.
that's what's beautiful. That's what we want to try to convey is
Mhm,
that beautiful heartbeat of God that's a love that's unconditional with a grace that's amazing or astonishing. In
mhm,
other words, it surprises us. You know, a question that we ask is when is the last time you've been surprised at the goodness of God? And if you've got a traditional dogma, you're not going to be surprised very much because
mhm.
you think you know it.
You're an expert now.
And if it's somebody brings a goodness of God that's outside of that box, you won't accept it. You'll resist it because that goodness doesn't fit in your box. You were talking about that in the last episode with things like Jesus choosing to pay the person that showed up and worked 1 hour the same as those who worked all day long. Well, that doesn't make sense, doesn't fit in our box. And Jesus was telling them, no, this is a God that's that good. This is a God that will give grace, that will give mercy where you haven't earned it. And if that's not in your box, it says, no, we have to, and we have to earn it. We only get if we do this. If a grace and mercy that's way bigger than that doesn't fit in this, then we'll reject it. We'll
Mhm.
just say no. And then so we're not astonished. We
No.
just stay where we're at. And so we hope maybe somebody will listen and that hasn't been astonished in a long time and maybe allow themselves the permission to be astonished at the goodness of God. Because I think Jesus is knocking at the door. I think the Spirit is always trying to lead us and guide us into truth. He's very gentle with it. He's very patient with it. So, you know, it goes in accordance with our willingness to open our heart to certain things. But that tradition's a hard taskmaster. You know, I've been under lots of it, and
Yeah.
it's a
Uh,
tricky thing. It
I
keeps you
I
bound.
I guess I feel compassion because I feel like there's something about human nature that loves that, like, wants to
It's a
feel
sense of security.
secure and wants to feel safe and wants to know they have the answer, and if somebody's thinking different than them, it can be disruptive and a little bit yeah,
It's disruptive,
yeah.
and it's a scary thing.
Mm,
It feels like it's taking some security away from us.
mm,
I understand that. Um, you know, religion is a funny thing like that because it does give you a sense of security because
mhm,
we want we want control. And if we say this is God, then we feel like we've got a handle on things.
mhm,
This is how God works. But God is so big, isn't he?
mhm,
And he can break that box so easily if we're willing to look at it. Something else that gets in our way, it goes along with these traditions and the other things we're talking about, is that we all read our Bibles with some form of prejudice. So most of us come to Christianity and whatever form of Christianity we come into, because there's many forms, many different types of churches and beliefs, and they're all Christianity. But whichever type you come into, you assume that that's the right one. And you might eventually move from that into something else that you have found, and you know, and I have that experience too. But wherever it is that we're at, when we read the scriptures, we have a prejudice toward
mhm,
them. If we're more into a legalistic mindset, and if we really accentuate the idea of God being a just God, and our idea of justice is human form of justice, which is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, then we're going to see God that way. And so we will find that.
mhm,
We'll look in that Bible and we will find it in there. That's why and see, it's because of these prejudices. That's why so many different types of Christians can read the same Bible, but get very different doctrines in some areas because our eyes will gravitate to certain things. And even if God is trying to show us something else, our eyes want to go back to that. And so it resists us being astonished. We just want to go to the familiar. If
Mm.
we hear somebody bring something new that means that God might be a lot better than what we've been saying, it's more natural for our eyes to go to what we've already known and try to prove that.
So, what do you think it's possible to recognize your own bias when reading the scriptures and go, I'm reading this through my bias
Yeah,
right
I'm
now?
I'm starting to see it now. I'm starting to recognize
Yeah.
that I may be biased, and I think that's a
Yeah.
good awareness to have. Do I know what they all are? Maybe not, but the beginning of it is starting is acknowledging that I could be biased in my reading of this. And
Yeah.
so if you can do that, then you're more on your way to critical thinking where you're like, okay, let me go ahead and look at this other side of things.
Hmm.
And let's look at the let's look at this and try to have an open heart with it
Yeah.
and let's see where it's going. But see, also in this, you don't just get it from Bible reading because we don't want to replace the person of God with the book about God. And that does happen a
Yeah.
lot. It
Yeah.
happens a whole lot because we like it to be in our mind because there again, we feel like we've got control of it. There's a pride element sometimes that's involved with that. There's a security issue with that. But there's a person, there's a father who created us, who loves us, who talks,
Hmm.
who is alive and real, who we can communicate with and
Hmm.
listen to. A lot of us, we pray, but we don't listen. We tell God stuff, we ask God things, but we don't take time to do the listening part a lot. And I found that if we listen, he can talk. And if you listen to him, he will surprise you. He just does.
You talk about it like, I know he was speaking to me because I was thinking this way, and what he said went exactly in the
It
opposite of
surprises you.
direction because I would never have thought that myself.
That's a right. That's a way you can know. Like sometimes you can just have a thought. Sometimes we say God told me, and then it's
Yeah.
like, well, did he really tell me, or did I just think that? But when I believe and I think this way, and then I hear something in the spirit that goes totally the opposite this way, that's not my normal thoughts.
Yeah.
That's not my brain just carrying out its process here.
Yeah.
This is the spirit intercepting me and saying, "This is the way. Walk ye in
Yeah.
it." And it's always bigger and better than whatever it was I was thinking,
I could have put,
will
yeah.
astonish you,
Yeah.
and you grow that
Mhm.
way.
I think I've seen that in artistry, like, the arts, when people are writing music or poetry, and there's this sense that something beyond my mind, my thoughts, is coming out of me, and I feel a sense of, like, something bigger than me. I feel a sense of God surprising even the writer, even the person who's, I guess would get credit for
Mhm.
it. It's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that didn't really come from my thinking. That came from a place."
That's that creative thing that happens that
Inspiration,
and
yeah.
it surprises you, and it is called inspiration,
Mm.
which means inspiritation. Yeah. If you're inspired, you're inspirited.
Wow.
That's what that means,
Back in the day, the actors, they were considered spiritual people because they were bringing to the community, helping them to see beyond their biases, to see beyond, like, what they'd been trained in. That was their job in
Yeah.
community.
I love when you talk about those things. Like, this is my actress wife taking up for her actor friends and her actor world. But it's very true. It's because so much comes from that creative place, and it's surprising. I really love the idea that to be astonished means to be greatly surprised in a good
Mhm.
way,
Yeah.
and that's the spirit helping us because so much of Christianity. How can I say this without sounding too negative or critical? But honestly, so much of Christianity can be very dysfunctional. There are a lot of things that I have to agree with some of the critics on some of it, and you know there is a type of Christianity that's very judgmental, not seeing how good God can be. Some are very legalistic. Some are very so wrapped up in politics that they can hardly recognize Jesus at all. Um, that it justifies hate in the name of morality or something.
Mhm.
All these things can be very judgmental, and because we're convinced that we're correct and on the correct mission and know the correct things, there again, it causes us to resist being astonished by the goodness of God, which does changes. And that's what I like most about this is that it does these beautiful changes, pretty things in your heart that you feel good when you notice those changes. You feel good that you're growing more gracious instead of less gracious. And
Mm.
you feel good that you're not getting more angry. Like there's a type of Christianity that will make you angry as a Christian rather than become more peaceful and gracious. And so I love those changes that it does in the heart. It causes when we're astonished by God's love, it has a way of causing us to come into a place of being more loving and giving.
Mm.
And it's all beautiful things. And that's how we're surprised by it because it's more beautiful than we thought. I got into this in the beginning thinking it was a matter of keeping some rules and I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it for God, but I had no idea how beautiful he was and how beautiful this life could be.
I think I got in it for community and like wanting to be a part of something bigger than myself. But when that community became more of a prison or it became more of a country club where we can talk bad about these people because they're outside of us. That it didn't leave me with what you're describing, where you can feel in your own heart this goodness coming alive. And you're like, I don't need to make fun of other people, or I don't need to compare myself to other people. I can actually see Jesus in this different one or in this weird one or something outside of my box. And that I think was a surprise to me.
That's
Yeah.
surprising in itself, and it takes you out of your box. Because I wanna mention one last thing that we
Yeah.
have on our list because I think it's important, and I want you to share what we were talking
Okay.
about earlier, peer pressure. Religious peer
Yeah.
pressure is a big one.
Yeah.
Got a group, and I've seen something that is just so good, and I
Okay.
know it's true, but I'm
Say
scared of it, scared to say it because I will lose my friends, and that's a sad thing, and
I know.
it can happen. It does happen. We've seen it happen.
It's
We're talking
painful.
about being in Christ, and things really shouldn't be, but we shouldn't have peer pressure. We don't need the type of Christianity that builds a cage around us and says, "You can't believe this, you can't think that, and you can't think this."
Otherwise, we're going to throw you away.
Yeah.
I think my heart is so tender in some ways for community that when people do that, it just
Yeah,
hurts.
it
Gosh.
is sad. It's a
And it
hurtful
has kept people from really being authentic with their faith
that's what we're talking
because
about.
they're so afraid of upsetting the
Yeah.
apple
They're
cart.
afraid to move into what God is telling them and
Yeah.
showing
I
them.
think I am too. I want to say for myself, I think I have noticed in myself things that I've been thinking, but I'm not ready to
'Cause
announce, but they're
there's a
things that are
resistance. Yeah.
cooking in me and like I'm considering and thinking about, but I don't feel like I know it or I know that it's
Right, and that
so
happens
I'm
too,
just
so there's a process. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm just
But we should feel safe. We should be able to feel safe in it because there's many ways of doing Christianity. God is very big. Jesus is the way. He has opened and reveals the way to the Father. But God is very big, and
mhm.
there's lots of different ways of being a Christian, honestly.
Yeah, so I wanted to share something that I read to Rick yesterday morning. It's from a newsletter I get from a Center for Action and Contemplation. And this particular I just thought was beautiful. I think I just want to I'll read it and then
This
we'll
is
talk
from
about it.
a ministry that we really like to read what they
So
put out.
this woman is writing, she said, I was in 8th grade, sitting in the library with my very best friend in the whole world. Her name was Lisa. We were working, but we were really giggling and passing notes to each other and messing around when Lisa gets really quiet for a moment. She has this faraway look in her eyes and she says, Valerie, I just can't wait until Judgment Day. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, then it'll be just us. It'll be just us. I can't wait until it's just us who are left. And I said, well, where will everyone else go? And then she looked at me very uncomfortable and she said, well, down there. It was at that moment that I had to break to my very best friend the fact that I was not a Christian. I could see the blood drain from her face. How could her very best friend not be saved, not be good, not be Christian? She had inherited a theology that divided the world into good and bad, right and wrong, saved and unsaved. Her theology severed her from her own deep knowing that her best friend was good and beloved. It's like her theology stole me from home. She was trying to make it all make sense, try to hold both. But she couldn't hold both. She had to let me go. In the wake of that loss, the woman who wrote this, she visited a church where she can confront a Christian about this belief in a God who discriminates against people of other faiths. There, she meets a church organist and recalls saying, and so she's talking to the organist saying, I just can't believe that there could be a God who would send me to hell. I said. There was a pause as she looked at me. I was ready for a fight. I can't either, she said. She saw my shock and explained, I think that there are many paths. It just doesn't make sense otherwise. Her name was Faye, and she was the first Christian I had ever met who did not believe I was going to hell. I would go on to meet many more people like her and learn that there are many ways to be Christian, just like there are many ways to be Sikh. So this woman was of the Sikh faith. Um, our traditions are like treasure chests, filled with scriptures, songs, and stories. Some empower us to cast judgment, and others shimmer with the call to love above all. I love that
To love
line.
above all.
Shimmer with the call to love above all. 15 years after I thought our friendship was over, Lisa would reach out with an apology. She would still be Christian and I would still be Sikh, but she would have long abandoned that particular theology that had tried to sever us from one another. She had gone on her own journey and had eventually come back to our friendship. In the end, we learned that love was the way, the truth, and the life.
That's beautiful. And that could be
Beautiful.
provocative just in
I
itself too
know.
to
When you're
people.
reading it, you're like, oh,
Yeah. Um, but our point is that God is big and he's surprising and
mm,
he might be better than we thought he was.
yeah. I
And I
think it's
love that idea.
important to say, like, we're not trying to get anyone to agree with what we think, but we are inviting people to consider
The goodness of God.
the goodness, the grace, the love of God, and what that leads to. Because this is how you describe it. It's like we're going somewhere, we're moving
Towards
towards
love.
love. And so as we move towards it, things are falling off of us that were, I guess, safety hooks or whatever that we no longer need.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like we've left the bird cage and we've come to live in our bird house and we get to fly now. And it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and it was for freedom that we were set free.
I love it.
Well, thanks for watching this. We
Yeah.
have another episode uh, that we're going to be talking more about these very things on being astonished by God.
So we hope you'll join us next week. In the meantime, if you want to hear more of what we share, there you can go to our website at rickmanis.com, or you can go to our YouTube channel, and or we have a podcast. Third option, the third option, which you can find on all places that carry podcasts. And yeah, we have a newsletter that we send out sometimes weekly, sometimes
Usually weekly.
bi-monthly. So if you'd like more, subscribe, like, and share with someone you think might be encouraged by that or might think it's beautiful and be like, I think it's beautiful.
Have a great day.
Bye bye.